10 signs you've been hurt by a narcissist. There's a quiet kind of pain that doesn't show up on x-rays, doesn't bleed visibly, and doesn't come with a doctor's diagnosis. It's the kind of hurt that lives in the space between words, in the silence after a conversation that left you feeling smaller, confused, or somehow wrong, even when you didn't do anything wrong. It's the pain of being emotionally dismantled by someone who claimed to love you, care for you, or understand you. If you've ever walked away from a relationship feeling like you lost yourself, like you can't trust your own mind, or like you're constantly apologizing for things you don't even remember doing, this video is for you. Today, we're talking about something that affects millions of people but is rarely discussed with honesty: the invisible wounds left behind by a narcissist. Not the loud, obvious abusers, not the cartoonish villains, but the ones who smiled while they hurt you. The ones who said, "I love you," while making you feel unworthy. The ones who made you question your memory, your emotions, and your sanity until you didn't know who you were anymore. This video will walk you through 10 clear, unmistakable signs you've been hurt by a narcissist. Not to scare you, not to make you angry, but to free you. Because the first step toward healing is recognizing the truth. And the truth is, it wasn't your fault. You weren't too sensitive. You weren't crazy. You were targeted by someone who thrives on confusion, control, and emotional manipulation. So if you've ever asked yourself, was it really that bad? Or am I overreacting? Or why do I still feel so broken? Stay with us until the end. What we're about to discuss might finally give you the clarity you've been searching for. Let's begin. When you're involved with a narcissist, you're not just in a difficult relationship. You're caught in a psychological system designed to keep you off balance. It doesn't start with abuse. It starts with charm, with attention, with a sense of being seen like never before. They make you feel special, chosen, deeply understood. But over time, something shifts. The compliments turn into criticism. The affection becomes conditional. The love feels like a performance. And slowly, without realizing it, you begin to change. You walk on eggshells. You second-guess your words. You apologize constantly. You start wondering if you're the problem. That's not love. That's manipulation. And it leaves behind deep emotional scars, many of which you might not even recognize as wounds. Psychologists who study narcissistic personality disorder, NPD, observe that narcissists don't form genuine emotional bonds. Instead, they build relationships based on control, admiration, and influence. They need constant validation to feel whole. And when you stop giving it to them, whether by setting boundaries, questioning their behavior, or simply growing as a person, they respond not with understanding, but with manipulation, punishment, and emotional withdrawal. So, how do you know if you've been hurt by a narcissist? Let's go through the signs. Each one rooted in psychological observation. Each one explained in a way that brings clarity, not confusion. 1. You constantly question your own reality. One of the most common and damaging effects of being involved with a narcissist is losing trust in your own mind. You remember a conversation one way. They insist it happened differently. You know you were hurt. They tell you you're overreacting. You express a feeling. They tell you you're imagining it. This is called gaslighting, a psychological manipulation tactic where someone makes you doubt your memory, perception, or sanity. Narcissists use it to maintain control. Because if you can't trust yourself, you'll start relying on them to tell you what's real. And that's exactly what they want. If you find yourself saying things like, "Maybe I did miss here," or "Maybe I'm too sensitive," or "I don't know what's wrong with me," it's not because you're flawed. It's because you've been conditioned to doubt yourself. 2. You feel emotionally drained after interacting with them. Healthy relationships should give you energy, not take it away. But if you've been involved with a narcissist, you may notice that every conversation, every text, every interaction leaves you feeling exhausted, mentally, emotionally, and sometimes even physically. That's because narcissists don't engage in balanced communication. They dominate. They deflect. They twist things to make you feel guilty. They create drama to keep you emotionally invested. And over time, this constant emotional labor wears you down. You're not just talking to them. You're managing their ego, soothing their insecurities, and defending your own worth, all at once. If you feel like you're always on, always performing, always trying to avoid conflict, It's a sign you've been in an emotionally draining relationship. 3. You apologize constantly, even when you didn't do anything wrong. Have you ever found yourself saying, "I'm sorry" for things you didn't do? For existing too loudly? For having a different opinion? For not being available enough? Narcissists often project their own flaws onto others. If they're angry, they make you feel like you caused it. If they're insecure, they make you feel like you're not good enough. And because they can't tolerate being wrong, they shift the blame onto you. So you start apologizing, not because you're sorry, but because it's easier than fighting. It's a survival mechanism. But over time, it erodes your self-worth. You begin to believe that you're the problem, that you're too much, that you're never enough. And that's exactly what they want. 4. You've lost touch with who you used to be. Before this relationship, you might have been confident, outgoing, full of dreams. Now, you feel like a shadow of your former self. You don't laugh as much. You don't speak up. You don't pursue your passions. You become quiet, cautious, unsure. That's not personal growth. That's diminishment. Narcissists don't encourage your independence. They fear it, because the more you grow, the less control they have. So they subtly or not so subtly undermine your confidence, your goals, your identity. And over time, you begin to disappear. Not physically, but emotionally, spiritually. You stop trusting your instincts. You stop believing in your worth. You stop feeling like you. And that's one of the deepest wounds of all. 5. You feel like you're always walking on eggshells. Do you find yourself constantly monitoring what you say, how you say it, and when you say it? Do you avoid certain topics because you know they'll trigger anger, silence, or manipulation? Do you feel like you have to tiptoe around them to keep the peace? That's not love. That's fear, and it's a hallmark of narcissistic abuse. Healthy relationships allow for honesty, disagreement, and emotional safety. But in a narcissistic dynamic, conflict isn't resolved, it's punished. So you learn to stay quiet, to agree, to disappear. And that constant state of hypervigilance, of waiting for the other shoe to drop, takes a serious toll on your mental health. 6. You're confused about whether you were abused. One of the most painful experiences for survivors of narcissistic abuse is not knowing if what they went through counts as abuse, because there was no physical violence, no obvious screaming matches, no dramatic scenes. Instead, it was subtle. It was psychological. It was emotional erosion over time. And because it didn't fit the typical image of abuse, you start wondering, was it really that bad? Did I make it up? Am I just being dramatic? But psychological abuse is real. Emotional manipulation is real. Gaslighting, silent treatment, blame shifting, and control are all forms of abuse, even when there's no violence involved. And if you feel broken, confused, or lost after a relationship, that's proof enough that something deeply damaging happened. 7. You feel guilty for setting boundaries. In healthy relationships, boundaries are respected. In narcissistic ones, they're seen as threats. Because boundaries mean you're no longer willing to be controlled. You're no longer giving them unlimited access to your time, energy, or emotions. So when you set a boundary, whether it's saying no, asking for space, or limiting contact, they respond with guilt, anger, or punishment. They might say things like, "After everything I've done for you," or "You're just being selfish," or "Fine, I'll leave you alone. Hope you're happy by yourself." And over time, you start to feel guilty for protecting yourself. You start believing that setting boundaries is cruel. That saying no is rejection. That taking care of yourself is abandonment. But it's not. It's self-preservation. And the fact that you feel guilty for it is a sign you've been conditioned to prioritize their needs over your own. 8. You miss them, even though they hurt you. This is one of the most confusing parts of healing. You can know, with every logical part of your mind, that they hurt you, manipulated you, and damaged you, yet you still miss them. You miss the good times. You miss the way they made you feel seen. You miss the intensity, the passion, the connection. But here's the truth. You're not missing them. You're missing the idea of them. You're missing the version of them they showed you in the beginning. The charming, attentive, loving person who made you feel special. But that person wasn't real. It was a performance, a mask, a love-bombing tactic designed to hook you emotionally. And the reason it hurts so much to let go isn't because they were good for you. It's because they made you believe they were. 9. You become hyper-aware of other people's emotions. After being in a relationship with a narcissist, you may find yourself overly sensitive to other people's moods. You notice when someone seems upset. You assume it's your fault. You rush to fix it. You over-apologize. That's not empathy. That's trauma. You've been conditioned to believe that other people's emotions are your responsibility. That if someone is unhappy, you must have done something wrong. That peace depends on you being quiet, agreeable, and accommodating. And while that might have kept the narcissist calm, it's not sustainable. It's not fair. And it's not healthy. You are not responsible for managing other people's emotions. You are only responsible for your own healing. 10. You feel relieved, but also guilty for feeling that way. When you finally walk away, when you finally break free, the first thing you might feel is relief. A deep, quiet sense of peace. Like you can finally breathe again. But then, almost immediately, guilt follows. Should I feel this good? Am I a bad person for leaving? What if they're suffering? That guilt is not a sign that you did something wrong. It's a sign that you were deeply manipulated. Because narcissists condition you to feel responsible for their happiness, even when they never cared about yours. So the fact that you feel relief and then feel guilty for feeling relief proves how much control they had over your emotions. In conclusion, if you recognize even a few of these signs in yourself, please understand this. It does not mean you were weak. It does not mean you were foolish. It does not mean you deserved what happened. It means you were targeted intentionally and systematically by someone who knew exactly how to exploit the very qualities that make you who you are, your kindness, your empathy, your deep capacity for love. Narcissists don't succeed because they're emotionally intelligent or strong. They succeed because they are skilled at identifying people with big hearts, people who care deeply, who want to believe the best in others, who try to fix what's broken. And that's where they strike, not in strength, but in love. Not in power, but in vulnerability. They win not because they are superior, but because they manipulate the very traits that make you beautiful. Your compassion, your loyalty, your willingness to give second chances, your hope that people can change. They don't win fair. They win by distorting truth, by twisting reality, by making you doubt yourself until you forget your own worth. But here's the truth you need to hear, loud and clear. You didn't lose. You didn't fail. You survived something that was never meant to be survived with dignity intact. And the fact that you're here, reading these words, recognizing these patterns, means you're not just surviving anymore. You're healing. So please, don't question your pain. Don't tell yourself you're overreacting. Don't minimize what you went through because there was no physical violence or dramatic screaming matches. Emotional abuse leaves invisible scars, but they are no less real. And confusion, the exhaustion, the loss of self, you didn't imagine that. It happened, and it mattered. Don't wonder if you're crazy. You're not. You were made to feel that way. That was the goal. A mind that doubts itself is a mind that can be controlled. But now you're waking up. And that's the most powerful thing you can do in the face of manipulation. You're not broken. You're not damaged beyond repair. You're not unlovable. You're awake. And awareness is the first act of rebellion. The moment you recognize these signs, not to dwell in pain, but to understand the truth, you take back your power, not through anger, not through revenge, but through clarity, through self-compassion, through the quiet decision to stop blaming yourself for someone else's inability to love. Because healing doesn't begin when the narcissist leaves. It begins when you stop believing their version of reality. It begins when you realize this was never about your worth. It was about their emptiness, their fear, their profound inability to form real, reciprocal love. So keep going, even on the days when the memories resurface, even when the guilt tries to whisper that you should have stayed, even when you miss the fantasy they sold you. Keep healing, one breath at a time, one boundary at a time, one act of self-kindness at a time. Keep reclaiming your life, not the life they allowed you to live, but the life you're meant to live, free, authentic, unapologetically yours. And never, ever forget, You are not broken. You are not ruined. You are not less than. You are in the process of becoming whole again, piece by piece, memory by memory, truth by truth. And that journey, that sacred return to yourself, that is your victory. Thank you for watching. If this video resonated with you, please consider subscribing, liking, and sharing it with someone who may be on the path to healing. Don't forget to leave a comment below. Let us know your thoughts, your experiences, and how you're rebuilding your life after toxicity. Your voice matters. Your story matters. Remember, healing is not a straight line. It's full of ups and downs, moments of strength, and moments where you may feel uncertain. But every step you take away from their chaos brings you closer to your truth. Keep going. Keep growing. Keep reclaiming your power. We'll see you in the next video. Until then, take care of yourself. Stay grounded. And never stop believing in your own worth.